Welcome to the Digital Campus Podcast with eCampusOntario, the show for educators and learners who are participating in and shaping the future of higher education in the digital era. Each episode features insightful conversations with leaders in education and other experts to bring you valuable perspective and strategies for navigating digital pedagogy in higher education today and tomorrow. The Digital Campus Podcast is where innovation meets higher ed.
eCampusOntario. I'm your host, Robert Luke. Today we have a special show for you in that we have a whole panel of recent graduates of the eCampusOntario Leadership for Digital Transformation micro-credential program. We're going to be talking about the growing need for alternate credentials and how educators are moving beyond the reactive approaches we witnessed during the pandemic to integrate technology more thoughtfully into their teaching practices. Let me introduce our panelists. Here with me today are Roshni Anthony, Associate Vice President, Human Resources from Lakehead University. Welcome, Roshni.
Thank you, Robert. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Kim Falsino, Vice President, Oshkipimasho the Wenjack Education Institute. Welcome.
Thank you, Robert, for inviting us today. Thank you.
Christa Morrison, Business Systems Specialist with McMaster University Technology Services.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the invite.
And last but not least, Monica Shah, eCampusOntario Digital Transformation Associate.
Thanks, Robert. It's just great to be here today.
Well, this is going to be a fantastic conversation. I know I'm going to learn a lot from this. So why don't we start with what motivated each of you to enroll in the eCampusOntario Leadership for Digital Transformation micro-credential program? Kim, why don't we start with you?
Thanks, Robert. My excitement when I saw this was piqued because I've followed along with educational technology my full career. So I've always had an interest in joining communities of practice and doing learning in this. So it was a natural choice for me to sign up when I saw that this was an opportunity. But the reason isn't just personal. Professionally here at Oshkipimasho, the Wenjack Education Institute, we don't have a lot of staff with more sophisticated digital skills. We're still building our capacity. So I felt it was important, me as a leader, to become involved, to see what was out there, see the learning, so that I could bring back and share it with the team and the staff. Because technology is a very rapidly changing area. So we know it's hard to stay current. So we appreciated that eCampus was doing the heavy lifting in finding out all of these current things, packaging them up in a module format that made it easy for me to follow along, see what was new, and then bring it back to the organization for the greater benefit.
Oh, fantastic. Christa, how about you? What was your motivation?
Robert, I think, my experience of attending all the eCampusOntario technology showcases over the years and all the sessions online over the last few years, I often drew from what other people learned, what they shared with us in terms of, ideas of how to incorporate that in my work in digital transformation. And I also, found collaborators across Ontario, like York University, Western University, Queen's, etc. And I just felt like, this is probably a culmination of a lot of all of those wonderful ideas and learnings, and it sort of give you a barometer of what's going on everywhere else. What are people thinking about? Just becoming more and more part of this community.
Oh, that's great. That's really nice to hear, Christa. And Roshni, how about you?
Well, I think, I'm in human resources, and we've been in the kind of digital revolution for some time, but the pandemic completely accelerated it in many, many ways. And so whether it's the workforce that's coming into organizations, or even the students in our universities, the whole digital side of things has become so prominent and important.
And I'm relatively new to the higher education sector as such. So when this came up with eCampus Ontario, I thought, okay, this will give me a good opportunity to get more exposure to other, colleagues in the university environment. And the other piece is, being in Ontario, we know what the condition of Ontario universities are currently with all the budget constraints. So there is nothing more important than having, cost-effective digital solutions. So this was just the right way of going towards that understanding.
Well, thank you very much. I love the point you make about being in human resources. And I'm kind of reminded of the fact that the future of learning is the future of work, and vice versa. The future of work is also the future of learning, and that future is right now. And
absolutely, yeah.
Monica, it's a great kind of a segue into asking you kind of the other side of the question, because you're the person who helped to create the micro-credential and to run and to teach it. So tell me about your perspective on the digital transformation micro-credential program.
Yeah, I mean, when we just started thinking about digital transformation and came up with this idea, I think the first thing that strikes me is when we think about digital transformation, generally we think in a very corporate and a workforce thing. So looking at digital transformation from a higher education thing, was very important. And I feel like after running the 3 cohorts, I guess, what happened through these is like everybody wanted to have a shared understanding of what digital transformation really means. Because the first thing is, digital transformation is technology. But as Roshni just said, it's beyond that. It's a journey. It's about the workforce. It's about the change of culture. So everybody got together to have, I would say, a better understanding of what digital transformation really means and how they are already contributing to it, or what else can they do to better contribute to the digital transformation of the institution. That's how I feel about this program now.
Well, it's nicely put and really reinforces, what Kim and Christa were saying,
Yes.
Roshni, about the value of community, about learning together and learning from each other. And Kim, to your point, taking what you're learning and bringing that back to your own institution as well. And as leaders in your institution, I think that's a very important role that you can play and that we're happy to support. So maybe I'll ask, in your opinion, and Christa, I'll ask you to answer this first, this round. In your opinion, why is there a growing need for alternate credentials in the field of education, but particularly in support of digital transformation?
Well, Robert, I think, the digital transformation has accelerated, and I would say at least over the last 10 years. And then during the pandemic, we went in overdrive. And then with, the introduction of generative AI and all the new capabilities just a year ago, like times what? I can't even say 100, because I think it's way more than that. So I think, the way we do things, because of the changes in development and technology changes. If we think about hybrid electric vehicles, what did we know about it? Who had to quickly jump in and design courses? We had to reach out to people working in the industry, as well as subject matter experts at universities, to put a course together like that. So, I mean, that's one example of a technology. Now, all of a sudden, like with generative AI and what we can do with, the help of large language models, once again, how can we quickly get the people with the knowledge together and, make that knowledge available to other people? So I think it's going to happen just quicker, and we need to learn faster and spread the knowledge faster and wider. And I think for that reason, these micro-credentials and, just a shorter duration of course that sort of just brings the knowledge together in a very easy, digestible format, and you can always iterate on it, is really filling that gap that we try and fill now to keep up with the lifelong learning that's part of our lives.
Well, that's very well said. Exponential disruption is how I would think of it with open AI. And Roshni, I mean, you mentioned from the human resources perspective, what's your take on this growing need for alternate credentials?
I couldn't agree more with Christina, actually. Just the speed of change and the speed of things that people need to learn more, right? So traditionally, you would do your degree, undergrad, maybe a postgrad, and then you could go for conferences, and that was your continuous professional development, and that was it. But with the change of all the technology and general learning overall, and especially in digital technology, it's become so much more important for professionals to be able to upskill themselves. And so these alternate credentials, these micro-credentials, they are such a agile and approach to kind of, okay, targeted learning. This is what you really need to know. So go for it, do it in a short while, and you come back with a wealth of knowledge, right? Which I think is so important for I think any working professional for sure, right?
Well, I would tend to agree. And Kim, you started out by in the first question talking about how you were joining the community of practice in order to kind of bring that back into your organization. So what would you add to this part of the discussion?
I think one of the things that is really present in my context is the role of geography. We are very far removed from the GTA, where opportunities to engage in things are, an inconvenient car ride to get across the GTA to go to an event. Here, that's an airplane ticket and hotel stay, given fair weather. Otherwise, the plane doesn't fly, and you're kind of stuck. So the magnitude of commitment, effort, cost, and the whole consumption of resources to engage in learning is very different for people who are geographically isolated from where a lot of things happen. So maying to an online type of delivery levels the playing field a little bit for some of those barriers, but it's not 100%. Thunder Bay isn't all that remote. We're a city, but our constituency, our students in the Anishinaabe Nation territory, or our instructors in those territories, are even another 2 or 3 hour plane ride further north from Thunder Bay, where intranet is not a given in terms of to the home high quality or high speed. So they still have internet barriers the further remote you go. So there's differences of benefit that are useful at different levels all the way through. But in general, this does allow for a greater level of access and participation, and perhaps at a lower cost and bigger cost to the organization. Don't have to be away for 2 days to attend a 1-day event. You really just have to close your door, do some work, and then you're back, in with the organization. So I think that's what really helped me in particular for a lot of this experience.
Well, it's such a illustrative example of the power of the internet in this case to help transcend geography. Not to say that face-to-face interaction isn't great and preferred in many cases, but I'm reminded of something I heard a while back where somebody said, for most of us, technology makes things convenient, but for a lot of people, technology makes things possible. And I think that, Kim, is something that you were really just reinforcing. And Monica, I'm going to move on a little bit here and talk a bit about the intentional integration of technology into educational practices, because I know that's what the digital transformation course is about. And I'll let the rest of you know that I'm going to be asking you the question about how you've initiated or accelerated your own journeys or in your institutions. But Monica, what can you tell us about the intent or the design behind the course in terms of intentionally integrating technology into educational practices? And how did you envision supporting the shift from the reactive approaches during the pandemic, such as Christa mentioned earlier, to this more intentional, as we like to say, digital by design? So Monica, tell us a little bit about the design theory, if you will.
Yeah, So this just really takes me back to where, you just said, what really happened with the pandemic. I think digital by design, online learning always existed, right? But what the pandemic did was it shifted the way we approach that learning. Like now one understood that this is not just a supportive learning. This is also a way where great learning can be delivered, great engaging learning can be delivered. And that kind of just shifted. And that's when we thought that, okay, this is all about, when we talk about online learning, we are just looking at the tools, right? But there is more to it. It is about the transformation that's happening because of the tools. And that's where the whole idea about this program started. And then we thought about, okay, what is it that somebody who's already doing something in this line would like to know? So when we kind of did a scan, we saw that people are aware of the tools. There is a scope, but there's something more that they need to know. That to be able, what kind of support they do need, right? To make the transformation really happen, it is about the whole ecosystem. So that's how we started integrating that. Yes, they have to be the digital champion, but they also need to see it as a vision, like as a holistic thing. It is about the whole ecosystem that they need to. So those were the things that came up to our mind. And then we said, even if they could be in a leadership role, but they could just be working as individual contributors also, but you're still managing something which is digital. So then we thought about, okay, they need to know about digital management also. And that's how we kind of thought about this program, that it's not that technology is just supporting. It is like, but nothing is replacing, right? But it is just about equipping all the stakeholders that are involved in this this whole thing about supporting education through technology. And that's how this kind of program came into existence, I would say, Robin.
That's pretty interesting and a really nice, as you say, Monica, holistic view to this.
Yes.
Roshni, can you share specific examples of how you have initiated or accelerated your own digital transformation journey in your institution?
I think, from our perspective, it's really more about leveraging technology to improve workflows and approvals and, get that increased efficiency so that the faculty and staff can focus on what they are supposed to do, which is provide this fantastic educational experience to our students. So the whole approach is one of how do we improve, I guess, human capacity and human capability so that ultimately it leads to better human performance. And the digital, piece of it is the tool that takes you through that so that you can get that additional efficiency. And so that's what we've really tried to do. So we are a Google school. And so that has really helped. And even just utilizing those tools more effectively has helped tremendously in saving time and helping people feel more in control of the time they spend at work because they have these digital tools that help in efficiency.
Right. So it's a digital empowerment as much as anything else.
Absolutely.
Kim, how about you? What's a specific example of how you have initiated or accelerated your own digital transformation journey at Ashkiwenja?
There's been a number of efforts at different levels. At the administrative institution level, we're working towards an accreditation process. So for that reason, we brought in an ERP SIS, so a very wide scale, full institutional level, for lack of a better word, data system to hold all records and to control our data integrity, etc. So that cascades down into the working groups for each of the divisions and the staff and the workflow of the frontline people who engage in populating the data and then using it to control the movement and flow and permissions of information throughout the system. That has also been compounded with a large project to enhance the curriculum that the learners are seeing. So we've also been working with upskilling or offering training through to our instructor group to to build more culturally responsive curriculum. So because we do most of our work in partnership with another college or university, the course outlines are standard to them. They are not particularly Indigenous in except for certain exceptions. So we work with our faculty to find ways to embed Indigenous pedagogy or ways of teaching and knowing, or contexts or examples or case studies. So, but that also includes us moving those instructors through into using things like polling, or to use digital whiteboards, or to use digital post-it note type of technologies. So it's embedding the technology authentically into us, upgrading the quality of the learning experience that's now in our own learning management system, that's linked through ILP to our ERP, student information system. So we have truly built a ginormous ecosystem of all of these things interconnected, but on a skeleton crew.
Well, that's a fair point, and I guess reinforces obviously the need for more resources in our sector, and in particular in Indigenous institutes, is quite acute. But it really reinforces the idea of the power of community and learning with each other. I'm going to come back to the idea of impact in a moment, but Christa, maybe you could share an example of how you've initiated or accelerated your own digital transformation journey at McMaster.
Thanks, Robert. Yeah, I think I'm someone who are so extremely attracted to frictions and challenges and injustices, and, all the messy things and the chaos and all of those things. And because I focus so much on it, and I have this interest in finding how to do things better, it just led me to technology. And then when you get to the technology, which, technology is something that we create based on knowledge that we have to make something better. It's the application of knowledge that we have. Then sort of, you can't but not look at the technologies and the emerging technologies that you have. So for me, if I just go back to, I'll just go back 6 years ago when I started working as a digital pedagogy specialist at McMaster. We started talking about technology enhanced learning. And I loved what Monica said earlier about digital by design, because I think what we know now is that we have to look at what we have in 2024 when we are designing learning or work environments or processes for people in 2024. And we have to think about, what are we going to have in 2026, 28, 2030, and, bring that to the table. So 6 years ago, I sort of saw that gap in friction on campus where students missed classes because they had to take parents to the hospital. Students missed classes because they have to work a shift. And they couldn't get access to the learning content that was shared in a lecture. So lecture capturing became a big thing for me to, identify how we can make use of this technology, and how can we assist educators in making it a seamless experience for them, to make it possible for students to get access to that content. So for me, it started with that. And then sort of in the pandemic, it moved on to, okay, now what do we do to help people do whatever they need to do from home? And we have 70,000 people. And so when I then started working with the central IT department at McMaster, and, tried to come up how we're going to help people move into the cloud with M365 and, continue doing what they're doing, but identify these technologies that can now enable it. That really excited me. And then at the moment with generative AI and, what that's now bring to us in terms of I was a student who had to go, and I enrolled for an engineering degree. My first language is Afrikaans, and all the textbooks and everything was in English. And I had to sit hours per night translating from one language to one that I've never had to use in an academic setting before. Think what can generative AI do today for an international student or a student who have to learn in a second language.
Yeah.
So yeah, all those challenges is what really attract me. And then I get into, okay, how can I help people adopt and use this technology?
So that's a powerful example, Christa, and a good segue into impact. And so maybe Christa, just continue that thoughts. And what's the impact of what you were able to put into effect? Options for learning, digital by design options to help people who can't attend class for a given day. That's a great example. But what do you see as the big impact of these digital transformation efforts?
I think it's about culture change. It's about human beings. I worked with a professor on campus who have dexterity challenges and could only use one finger. And the fact that technology can help him record with his voice and continue doing what he's so respected for. So I think it's about culture change in thinking about how can we do things. Culture to me means the way we do things around here. So if the way we did things around here looked different 10 and 20 years ago, what can technology enable today in terms of how we can do things around here?
Right.
And it's really about, identifying the needs of the people who can get so much value to do what they want to do and they feel so passionate about. But technology is something that could be quite a barrier, and people, it's just tech, or it's a tool, or it's difficult. But yeah, I think it's the fact that you enable and you provide access. And, it's like Marshall McLuhan is like one of these wise philosophers that Canada produced that I could never even learn about because of the restrictions in the country where I grew up. In South Africa, there were sanctions against us. So I couldn't get access to that kind of learning. But if you look at the wonderful visionary thoughts and stuff that he had, the medium is the message. And if you don't look at which medium you can work in today, then you cannot optimally work as a knowledge worker with information. And that's what we do.
Yeah, it's nicely said. And Kim, it really points to the point what you were saying about going through organizational transformation, through large systems. Basically, we need people to kind of see through those or work through those in order to get to the skills acquisition piece. And what do you foresee, Kim, in your institution, some of the impact or what you would expect to see or what you are seeing right now of digital transformation efforts?
I think the biggest impact is our focus is always student-centered, so I look there first. So the student experience is better in whatever way you measure, better. It will be more culturally informed. It will be more accessible. We're using a learning management system. We do record all of our synchronous lectures so that those with internet unavailability don't have a deficit. They can go back and watch it. We have built in, we just look at them as student supportive technologies or accommodations for learning. And it's for impactful learning, for the good, rich learning. And so that's how we make our decisions. And that's how we see the impacts in the participation rate, the completion rate, the satisfaction of our students. The fact that no sooner do we graduate a group of learners from something, they're back at our door saying, we want the next something in that learning pathway, and they expect us to deliver. The thought of, no, we're done here, go off to somewhere else, we'll help you with that. They're like, no, Oshki, you did it for me up to this point. We expect you to keep going. So that is the impact, because our learners trust us. They've empowered and embraced what we do, how we do it. They see the value in it, and that itself is demonstrating. And then that goes back through the communities that they're from, the 49 First Nations throughout NAN, for example. Or, then we hear from the chief, okay, well, you trained some of our students in such and such. Can we get a whole group of that program in our home community? But the reason that they're all happy with things is because we've added in layers of technology. We've upskilled our instructors and our staff. We've made room for quality things to impact the experience by using technology for the benefit of freeing up time or staff resources so that they can have those phone calls or those other ways to connect with people in ways that work for them. So we're using it thoughtfully and deliberately, all in the pursuit of a good quality educational experience for the students.
That sounds really fantastic. And Roshni, actually, I'm kind of struck by Kim's point about needing to and constantly actually upskilling the faculty as a way to ensure that there's digitally enabled learning is right in your wheelhouse, because you're as the person in human resources, your job is to ensure that faculty can teach and can teach with the kinds of technologies that our students are expecting, as we've heard from both Kim and Christa. So, Roshni, tell me, what's some of the impacts that you're seeing from your perspective?
I think, as an HR person here, just listening to both Christa and Kim and Monica earlier on as well about the whole cultural aspect of this use of technology and the digital transformation, right? It's really a cultural change, and that is true. Because one of the things is, this is a time when we have the workforce that's coming, people coming into the workforce are people who their first toy was a mobile phone or an iPad. And you still have that generation in the workforce who have seen the technology much, much later in their life. And so when you create these opportunities of digital transformation, when these people come together, it's really about that cultural transformation and bringing those people together and creating that culture of resourcefulness and innovation. And that's one of the things that I really liked about the course as well, because it talks about, the stakeholders and how do you get people together, the leadership behaviors. So it's all of that which really creates a transformation. And I think that's the impact of, especially in today's time with all these budget constraints as well, you need people to come together with innovative ideas. And that happens only if there's that culture of coming together, being and talking and discussing, and the digital transformation provides that kind of tool, which is almost kind of a neutral thing between these multi-generational workforce, where everyone's doing new things, but also everyone's doing it in new ways. Yeah. And I think that really helps.
Well, Christa, you mentioned Marshall McLuhan earlier, and I know Marshall McLuhan is noted to have said, "I don't know who discovered water, but it wasn't a fish." And in some respects, you're either the digital fish or you're not, but we're all trying to get into the same pool together and swim in the same direction. Monica, keeping in mind we're talking about digital transformation, and Roshni points out that it's actually a cultural transformation as well. What's your advice to educators for keeping up with the changing technology landscape?
Yeah, so if I could just say that the fact that we are all here together talking about digital transformation already makes me feel, that we are in this whole thing together. We are stakeholders doing different kind of roles, and we are here. Some of us are educators, some of us are doing some other thing. But the advice I would like to give to educators, as like most of you just pointed out, that the pace at which things are changing is very, very rapid, right? It can get a little difficult to keep up the pace, but what is good in today's time is I feel that all of us are contributing to knowledge. Like, it's not just the educators, it's the students, it's everybody together. So this is the opportunity to collaborate. Like, I know that, Christa, you work closely with your students. Your digital transformation project is with your students, right? So what I do suggest is these new opportunities to collaborate, a lot of resources of professional development, where we're talking about the alternate credentials. Like, if I could just kind of say, like with eCampus, like, the different kind of professional development courses we have, the different resources we have, and also, if last but not the least, is this community of practice, right? We're all here with different kinds of skill sets, but imagine we're just together talking about it. I would learn so much from Christa. Christa would learn from Rajni, and together we create this community. And that's the best thing I felt about this course is, beyond a point, like Robert, I was like a facilitator, and I saw that these people were just creating things themselves. You have this problem in your institution. You know what? Why don't you do X, Y, Z? So this whole thing of the community of collaborating, working in it together and say, yes, now is the time where we create knowledge together. I think that is my advice to the educators, I would say.
That's really well said, Monica. And Kim, maybe I'll ask you to comment on a two-part question, because Monica's talked a little bit about collaboration and networking and the importance of it. And we've heard all of you talk about that today. And I think it's a really wonderful encapsulation of the power of technology as we've talked about. But Kim, so let's start with you. And how has collaboration with peers, like the peers here today, and networking played a role in your own digital transformation journey? And what advice would you give to others about technology and collaboration?
I think it's been the spark of newness that you don't get in isolation. How do you know what the next great new inspired whatever, whether it's just somebody trying something or it's a proven thing, you want to hear from somebody about it, because that personal impact of that thing is the meaningful part. Reading about it on a website, okay, everybody wants to sell what they're selling. Hearing from a colleague that they tried the thing and wow, it was good, or ooh, it was super hard and it was super expensive and it was way more than we bargained for. That's a good story too, because now I know, okay, if we're truly going to step into that, we have to be better prepared. So that sharing and being frank and open and trusting that it's okay to say the things that are maybe not the best PR message, but it's truthful, but it's all in the service of education. Education is, we're all doing this for the greater good, and it's not about egos and it's not about money, and you need enough to do the job, but it's about sharing. And if somebody's got a great idea and they share it freely, and you pick that up, or you work together to try and splice together two ideas, I think that's at the heart of it. And getting engaged educators and leaders and the whole system to participate in that is really rewarding for the sector, and it cascades down into better experiences for the students, which is the whole point of why we're here. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, very well said, Kim. Christa, how about you? What role has collaboration with peers and networking played in your digital transformation journey, and what advice do you have to others?
Yeah, I must say, I don't think I would have stayed within this field if it wasn't for the fact that I could reach out and find people who shared my passion and, who could see what I could see is coming and going to happen, and believe in it and motivate. I think because I've lived in other countries and worked in other countries, and, even still traveled back to work there. My view is that there's so much that we can learn from diverse perspectives and different cultures. So for me, I make sure that I become part of communities in Europe, Australia, Africa, everywhere, because there's just so much that you can learn. And sometimes you're so surprised at how resourceful people are, in other places. And so I would say that is my advice. Don't only look and play in your own backyard. It's definitely reach out. There are so many amazing communities that you can become part of in a global context. And yeah, I would say that's it. And then, of course, Monica, me and my students, I so believe in, bringing the student perspective and skill to the table. They just, like someone said earlier, they grow up with different technologies than what we grew up with. So the way we do things, the way we communicate, the way we think, the way we learn are just completely different. So I always try and invite them, and I always encourage, staff, educators, researchers, everybody, just try and bring in students, create those opportunities.
Well said. Roshni, how about you?
I think, collaboration with peers, networking, that's like the essence of what makes, any workplace. And of course, educational institutions, that's what gives its life, right? And I think specifically after the pandemic, there's a little bit of, we've heard talks about burnout and feeling tired and all of that. And when you come together to collaborate and network on something like digital transformation, there's almost a feeling of collective restoration. Like you come together and then you feel that energy once again, right? And you understand and get the value of each other when you're able to do that. So that whole piece of knowledge sharing and collaboration, I think it really helps in improving the general positivity in the workplace from my perspective.
Well, what a wonderful conversation. I want to thank you all for this. Great encapsulation of why we are teaching our students and how we help our learners to learn, and the importance of that, and trying to get in other people's yards and spaces, and making sure that we're teaching with and through the technology, and just engaging and interacting with others. I really want to thank you all for taking the time today to share some of your experience with everybody. And I guess I'll just maybe end. We'll do a quick round robin. If there's anything else you would like to add before we close, Kim, why don't we start with you?
Thanks. Just we do appreciate, on behalf of Oshki Pamajuan, the Wenjack Education Institute, being included in eCampusOntario initiatives, and we truly value the capacity building that we're enjoying because of this. So you are the front entrance to our community of practice across a variety of domains, and the technology part of it is really important. So it's great to be included and to get a really wonderful training and learning and connections, and it's making significant impacts in our organization. So, thank you for putting on the DX transformation training. And I'm really excited that we had a chance to take it. So appreciate it.
Thank you. Good. Roshni, how about you? Any final thoughts?
Yeah. Previously, digital transformation was in the edges of our lives, but right now it's really mainstream. But ultimately, it's people and community that adopt. And so I really like the approach that this course, the digital leadership course, took in making sure it was about that holistic picture. Thank you very much for doing this podcast, and thank you very much for inviting me here today.
Thank you. And Christa, how about you? Final thoughts?
Yes, I think I want to say, it was so fantastic during the pandemic to watch how people came together and learned together. And I think we we established a new culture of not being scared to ask for help, and I think we should continue doing that. I mean, there's also the Socratic value. But once again, I think eCampus Ontario plays such an important role in providing a space and a platform where we can get together, at least in Ontario, and, ask the questions and help us go a bit further and hear from others. So I want to say thank you for that, and please keep on doing that.
Well, thank you. We fully intend on keeping on. And Monica, it's last word to you as the person who's been running the digital transformation show. What are your final thoughts for today's podcast?
I think the first thought that comes to my mind is that we are in good times. This is such a good time to talk about digital transformation. I feel a lot of barriers have broken. I feel our attitude towards digital transformation has changed. And as everybody kind of said, I would resonate the same thought, Robert, that, while we talk about technology and other things, the fact that we are taking a very human-centered approach, like we don't forget the people who are involved in the digital transformation, I would say we are just on the right path. That would be my final thoughts. And I really appreciate, all of you who've spoken about the program. I guess people like you who take this program and you advocate it and you share it, that's how we're going to create this whole chain of people who understand digital transformation better, I would say.
Fantastic. Well said, Monica. And that brings this episode of the Digital Campus Podcast to an end. Thank you to Kim and Christa and Roshni and Monica for joining me today. I really appreciated the time you've taken to share your stories of your experiences. In the show notes, we'll include some links to information, some news, and other resources mentioned, as well as all the panelists' socials so you can connect with them online. Thank you for listening. I'm Robert Luke, and this is the Digital Campus Podcast.
Thank you for joining eCampus Ontario on the Digital Campus Podcast, the show for educators who are shaping the future of higher education in the digital era. If you like the show, please subscribe now and share a link to it with your connections. Visit our website and follow us on X and LinkedIn for more information, tools, and support to successfully navigate digital pedagogy in higher ed for today and tomorrow. Funded by the Government of Ontario.